Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this PRSSA event tonight with Jay Harris. Just starting off with a couple of announcements. If you are a regular PRSSA SUNY Oswego chapter member, then I want to let you know that you do have the option and the opportunity to pay national dues. And those dues are due March 1st. You're going to see some things on our Instagram about some of the benefits of paying dues, being a part of national, etc. I'm really excited for that. And if you are not a regular here, then welcome. And we do events once a week throughout the semester, bringing in different industry professionals to talk to us about what they do. So I'm going to first introduce my executive board. So, I also want to make a comment that if you are not the speaker, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, keeping yourself on mute. If you have any questions throughout the first, 20, 25 minutes when Jay will be speaking, please just throw them in the chat and then I can moderate them. And then later, if you want to hold your questions, we're going to have an open Q&A. And we do have a little bit of a surprise hopping onto this event at about 7:20. So I'm excited for you guys to see what that surprise is. And yeah, I'm going to pass it to my vice president.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sonia. I am Vice President of PRSSA. I'm a junior public relations major with a minor in political science, and very excited to see you all.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I am a junior public relations major with a minor in dance, and I am the director of brand engagement, and I'm very excited for Jay to come and speak to us tonight. Super excited.
Hi, my name is Isabella. I'm a junior in PR, and I am co-director of digital communications here at PRSSA.
Hello, I'm Lily. I'm a junior communications student, and I am also co-director of digital communications here.
Awesome. So now you know who we are, and then I would like to hand it over to our guest for the night, Jay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for thinking of me and having me be a part of tonight's engagement series. It's an honor to look back and get familiar again with Oswego, which is near and dear to my heart. Obviously, was the springboard for me to advance my career. So with that being said, I know we got a lot kind of on hand and a lot that I want to get into. I think what I'm going to do is give you a background about how I got started, how I even got interested in the field to begin with, which I know that's big for students right now, figuring out what you want to do, and then kind of what led me down the path to where I am today, working for the Buffalo Bills, a team that I grew up adoring and absolutely loving. So it's been almost 20 years in this field, and the fact that I can look back and pinch myself and what I get to do on a daily basis and interact with a pro team in the Sabres and the Bills is surreal, to be honest. And it's a little surreal now that I get to share my story with you guys. So how I got started, I grew up a huge Bills and Sabres fan. I was known for being a Sabres fan. I had a jersey that I wore twice a week that said most valuable fan on it. And everybody knew if there was a Sabres game, Jay was locked in for the night. He was watching that. If it was a Bills game, don't talk to him until at least 4:00 when the game was over, or whenever the game was, whenever it was over. So senior year of high school, I had to take a career development class, which was huge for me, because it opened my eyes to, okay, well, I need to start thinking about what I'm going to be doing next year. I knew in my mind that I was going to go to community college, take my core classes, and then figure out where I wanted to branch off into. And I had to do a jobs shadow in that career development class, and I picked Empire Sports Network, which is now defunct, no longer available, but it was a 24-hour sports network in Western New York and Buffalo, and they were the home of the Buffalo Sabres broadcasting their games. So I got the job shadow. I went up there in the morning and I got to go to Sabres practice and go in the locker room and interview the players before that night's game. And then we went out for lunch and we went back and put a story together for that night's game. And then they asked me to go to that night's game. And I'm like, this day's going to continue. Like, this is awesome. Like, I can't believe it. So I got to go to the game. I got to go on the ice. I got to go in the locker room, and they won in an overtime. And it was absolutely amazing. I met Wayne Gretzky coming out of the bathroom, which was cool. I froze, made a fool of myself, but I think he understood what I was doing there as a young kid in high school and kind of gave me a pass on that one. From there on out, I'm like, I am hooked. I can't believe people get paid for doing this. This is awesome. So I immediately contacted the very next day the local TV station that had just started up called Cable 8 News. They were a Time Warner affiliate in my hometown, right down the street from my high school. So I went over there, introduced myself to the sports director, and he said, why don't you come after school and hang out for a little bit and come with me on some shoots and kind of get the lay of the land of how we do things in the actual broadcast field, which was awesome because he gave me hands-on experience. And from there, and I'll kind of speed this up a little bit, I was given a job within a couple of months. And so after school ended at 3, I'd walk over to the TV station and I was an editor, photog, and I played tapes for the video for their 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock newscasts. And I did that every day. It was a part-time job right after high school. And I just continued with it in the summer, which was full-time. And then when I transitioned to community college at Jamestown Community College, I continued working there until I decided I wanted to advance myself a little bit and figure out what I wanted to do. I was kind of behind the scenes production. And if I'm going to advance in broadcasting, maybe I want to seek out maybe doing some on air. So I left, went to Oswego, had no idea what I was getting into, had no idea it was on the lake. I got accepted and I went and absolutely loved it. The experiences that I had there, my best friend, one of my best friends, just in case my other best friends are listening, they give me crap about it, but is still close to my heart, and we still communicate. And just honestly, when we get together, we just tell old stories of Oswego. And if you still have the ropes when you walk across campus, is that still there? No, I saw a girl she was so little, get blown because of the wind, literally 50 feet into the tennis courts. And I'll never forget that. And that was the one time where I'm like, where am I right now? Because the weather is so crazy. And I thought I was used to it being from Western New York and Buffalo, but man, oh man, you guys get it like crazy up there. So I got involved in WTOP, doing pre, post, and calling hockey games for them, doing some editing, some broadcast work, but I still didn't know what medium. Was it TV? Was it radio? Was it print? Was it communications? So that allowed me to figure out what I really wanted to do. And working at WTOP was huge for me because I figured out, okay, I can incorporate industry experience with what I'm learning in my classes that I take on a daily basis. And I could apply both of those and vice versa when I'm learning in school to what I was doing with WTOP. And even when I went home on Christmas break, working at the local TV station. So those experiences at such a young age was invaluable to me. The fact that I think that's why internships are so important when you're in school, and making sure that you get similar experiences that you can apply, working field experiences that you can apply when you go to build your resume. If you are in an interview setting, the reason you're there is because you had the skill set. And the reason you're there is maybe because you drafted a great resume. But at that point, what sets you apart? It's got to be what else you've done. What other experiences have you done? The type of person that you are is huge. So if you sit down and you say, okay, here are some of my career goals, and maybe you had the same experience with software or hardware, or maybe you shared a story about going to the same college. When you're being interviewed, what have you just done? You basically started a relationship with that person. And after interviewing people and having my own department, that stuff lingers. It lingers in the minds of those that are hiring. And I think that's important. And that's what I applied when I got a job offer at Oswego to be an on-air TV reporter and anchor, sports reporter and anchor back at that station in Jamestown. It's the Buffalo market. So I left Oswego when I did graduate, and I took that job, and it was awesome. I mean, I was on air. It's such a small town, so I didn't know if people just knew me because they knew my family and that was my hometown, or if they knew me because I was on air and I was the face of Cable 8 News, which was pretty cool. So then after about a year of that, I decided, okay, I need a little, I was really raw. So I needed to advance my career a little bit, but I didn't know how. Unfortunately, the broadcasting field, you start out low and then you gradually work your way up. I did not want to leave the Buffalo area. The fact that I started working for the team that I love, I just did not want to leave that. So one day at Sabres practice, I was shooting a stand-up. I had to shoot my own stand-up on the bench. And a reporter from Channel 4 WIVB came up to me and said, "Hey, I don't mean to interrupt, but I've seen you around a little bit. We have a producer opening and I think you should apply for it." And I told her, I said, I just started here. I'm less than a year in and I'm trying to be on air. And she goes, "Well, I see the passion you have for the Sabres, for the Bills and the work you're doing. This is a way to continue to stay here and maybe branch out and grow." I thought about it. I didn't call. I was fortunate enough to get a phone call from their sports director saying, "Hey, just come up here and check it out." So I went up there and we had a great conversation. It wasn't an interview, it was a conversation. There was no, what were some of the biggest challenges you've had in the career, or give me some positives about, it was basically trying to find out about me and who I am. He said, "I know you have the skill set, but who are you as a person? Do you have the character that's going to lend the ability to learn? Do you have the friendship skills to create relationships so that if you need to lean on somebody when things are going bad, they can pick you back up?" And after I left there, I felt pretty confident about moving forward, not about just getting the job, but pretty confident about moving past and moving forward from being on air. There's times when I thought about going back and what that might have been like, but now I look at where I am now with a family. I met my wife here. I've had many friendships here, and what I'm doing today, I believe comes from the fact that I made that tough decision, and I branched out a little bit. And the reason I did that is because I wanted more valuable experience and more ways to be involved in the industry. It's one thing to be strict and just have on-air talent and maybe not have the technical skills in an ever so changing industry, which is important. So I was at Channel 4 for way too long. I stayed there for almost 8-9 years. The sports director that left a year prior to when I left, his name's John Murphy. I don't know if anybody's familiar with John Murphy. He's the voice of the Buffalo Bills. Again, me and him had a great relationship and a great friendship. And he said, "Hold on, I'm going to bring you over." So he left for the Buffalo Bills to do a nightly radio show and do website writing work. So a year went by and he called me up and said, "Apply for this job." And I got it, producing his nightly radio show and then shooting and editing Bills games, Bills practices. So I went from being on air to a producer coming up with ideas for a sportscast to now shooting and editing and doing a radio show, which I didn't have any experience with, but I wanted to do it, right? So here I am again, 10, 12, 13 years in to my professional career, and I'm still branching off. I'm still taking different paths to be versatile, basically. Some really cool experiences there. My first road game, being on the road, traveling with the team, it was in Chicago and the Bills won in overtime. a touchdown. Well, it started with a big long run from Fred Jackson. He almost ran into me, but getting on the bus and having a police escort you, take you to the hotel, and then waking up and being on the field in a visiting environment was just crazy to me. The music was loud, but it wasn't for your team. The fans were heckling you, and it was wild. And I'm like, this is really cool. This is really, really cool. 5 private with the team. And that went on for a couple of years. Home games were awesome. As you guys may or may not be aware of the atmosphere that Bills Mafia has inside then Ralph Wilson Stadium, now Bills Stadium. It's surreal. It is so wild. And to be in that dome and hear that, you think it's loud in the stands. Once that sound just kind of hovers over you like a cloud, it gets your heart racing, it gets your blood pumping. It is crazy. So from there, it was always, okay, you're doing shooting, you're doing this radio show, what's next? And it always came up in my reviews, do you still want to do this radio show, or how can we advance you? And I'm like, well, you tell me, what can I get into? What are some new things that we can start up? And it just kind of fell on the back burner. So another year went by, and they kept bringing up, do you still want to do this radio show? And I said, yes. And then there was a side conversation about the rights deal with MSG Western New York, who airs the Sabre games, and they wanted to renew their deal. So I got a group together, we had a meeting, and I said, in this rights deal, can we take that show, which was the John Murphy show, a 2-hour Bills show, and put it on MSG Western New York? And in the back of my mind, I said, we do this with the Sabres too. There's a radio show, a 2-hour radio show that is handled by the local radio affiliate. We don't even control that. Like, we should bring that back in. Let's do a block and put it together. And then I sort of just stood there in silence, like, what do you think? And they took me up on it, and I was blown away. And there was a collaboration, a group collaboration of putting this together. And it was basically, okay, you're going to lead this group. You're going to be hire about 5-person group. We'll start off slow and then branch out. And you're going to do a 5-hour simulcast block. I said, 5 hours, TV, radio, and I'm going to hire people. I had no idea what it was going to look like, who I was going to hire, what I needed to hire, what equipment I needed. So I called every CBS Sports, NFL Network, every radio station, big time producer I could get my hands on, and say, hey, if you guys are doing simulcast, where do I start basically at putting this together? And I found out that a lot of those simulcast shows are either handled by the radio station, and then a separate entity does the TV side. So I was kind of at a crossroads where I'm like, oh boy, like, I don't know how to put this together. So immediately what I did is I tried to find the most diverse group I could possibly find. So I needed a technical director to TD the show and just kind of be my ops guy. So I found a great guy who was running the game day scoreboard for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we hit it off, and he knew how to do some audio work. He also had background covering some baseball, minor league baseball. And so I hired him. I hired a graphics guy from Middle Tennessee State who did really cool floor designs for basketball games. Brought him on. I said, hey, can you run this Expression or Chiron, which is our graphics system? And he said, yeah, I can, and I can design something for you. Boom, you're in. I hired a producer from NFL Films. If anybody has ever seen NFL Films and any of the work they do, it is absolutely a piece of art, and music put to it is unbelievable, their storytelling. So I was able to hire that producer to help me out. And then I was able to hire a grinder of a production assistant from a local news station. I'll always go back. The experience I had in news taught me fast pace, quick, time-sensitive material at such a high quality. And unless you work in news, you don't have that mindset to get things done, to keep moving. And when we're doing 5 hours of TV and hey, I may need this soundbite, or hey, I may need this video to go along with this topic we're talking about, I needed him, and it was great. So I'm going to leave you here with this, and that's where I currently am. I was able to hire a few more individuals on my staff with, again, another diverse background. I hired one individual who really had no idea about sports, wasn't really interested in sports, but her organizational skills and her ability to kind of be our Swiss Army knife in backfill was important. And she was one of our most valuable employees that we have on staff. And now what we are is we're a group and we're a family. So I went from an employee to management, and I had to figure out what I knew, what I didn't know about building a team, and then what type of leader am I going to be? Am I going to be a micromanager, which at times is needed, or am I going to be more of a coach? You know, I mean, I work with my team. I work for them instead of them working for me. The word boss makes me cringe. So I'm with them. Right. I'm part of that group. I'm an arm of that group to put around them when they need something, when they need to be lifted up. But I do run that group, and they do respect me as the manager of that department as well. So one last thing here is what I do with those employees, and I just mentioned it a little bit about working for them and with them, is giving them a permission to succeed, pushing the right buttons to help them reach their potential. And then one other thing is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm going to bring in my guest here in a second, but the head coach of the Buffalo Bills will attest to that, as get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because once you get into a groove, you're going to hit road bumps, and you need to be able to get out of that. So that's a background about how I got started in the business and where I am now. And now I'd like to bring in a first round draft pick of the Buffalo Bills out of the University of Louisville. He played 9 seasons for the Buffalo Bills, and he's a Pro Bowler. And he's currently part of the Bills broadcast team, calling games on the radio, host of Bills Tonight, which is the Bills post-game show, also a member of the ACC network, and host of the What's Next with Eric Wood podcast, media mogul, if you will, Eric Wood. And Eric, I actually just looked this up because everybody's muted. So if I introduce you here, there's some applause for you. It says it goes 30 minutes. So if you don't have anything to say, we do have about 30 minutes left. I can just play this out. And I also will say, Eric, before I bring you up and you're actually allowed to say something, I agonized over what type of applause I wanted to bring you. There was like loud cheers, like if you were at a concert. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then there was like golf claps, and I didn't want to undervalue your importance to being here tonight. So I sort of went with the theater applause, if that was appropriate.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's appropriate.
Okay.
I think based upon the numbers, theater clap is good. And just like you were saying, you don't micromanage things. You don't look into things too much. You don't overthink things. So it truly shows when you analyze 3 different types of claps that you live that out daily.
Boom. I should just get out of here now. So Eric, thank you for joining us. Eric was one of my favorite players to have come on our show, and one of my favorite players that I covered. Now post-career, I am fortunate enough to continue my working relationship with Eric, and we've sort of shared a bond about kind of growing together in the broadcast field. And that is something, Eric, that you jumped right into after your playing career, which we'll get to in a second. But first, I just want to get your thoughts on some things I'm going to kind of pitch to you, and you can talk about it. I talked about being a leader and a coach to my team, and my team working with me, and I work with them, they don't work for me, basically. So can you talk a little bit about your playing days, being a leader on the field, and the importance of having chemistry, and basically your character playing an important role for the Bills and your teammates?
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, on a football team, on a broadcast team, whatever it may be, you have to have that chemistry. And a lot of that stems from having like-minded individuals that want to work hard. And that's on the leader. That's on the people in charge of the hiring process to get that right. On a team, it comes as a form of draft picks, or NFL team. It's draft picks, it's free agency, it's trades, it's acquiring guys, it's trying out guys that were street free agents, whatever it may be. In the broadcast world, it might be interview and hiring, but whatever it is, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott always talk about having the right type of DNA. So when you're looking at assembling a team, no matter what it is, as I have my podcast team now, as I work on different broadcast crews, you're looking for like-minded individuals that, ultimately want to work hard, that care about the group, that care about putting out a good product. On a football team, the good product is winning games. In my career now, it's more about producing a product that we can all get behind, that we're proud of. And so chemistry is important. Character is ultimately, when you have people of similar character, then you're going to get along well. You're going to respect each other. You're going to work harder for each other because you're aligned in values and work ethic and whatever else you're kind of measuring as proper criteria for whatever team organization you're trying to build.
That's great. That's great. It goes exactly to what I was saying earlier in this program. Eric, tell us what motivated you on the field during your playing days.
It goes in waves, because early in your career, in my career, I'll say, I was a first round draft pick. I wanted to give the Buffalo Bills a great return on investment. I didn't want to be a bust type player. And you can get that label quickly when you play for a team that's not winning games. I got hurt a bunch early in my career. So I never wanted to be that bust. So that motivated me daily to make sure the Bills were rewarded for making me a first round draft pick. I think ultimately when you're playing a sport professionally, it's a job. You're trying to support your family. Football provides you the opportunity in a very short window to create generational wealth for your family. So money is a driving factor. I am a Christian, so my faith drives me. I believe I was given gifts, and if I don't maximize my potential, then I'm wasting those gifts, and I'm ultimately letting down my creator. And then there's not letting the people down that help get you there along the way, because you have so many people that you played with or played under that helped get you to that point. So that motivates you as well.
So unfortunately, your career was cut short. You had a pretty severe injury that made you leave the football field, but you immediately jumped into the broadcasting realm. What kind of sparked that interest, and kind of take us down the path that led you to what you're doing today?
Yeah. So prior to me hopping into the media world, I spent about 5 months in what I call obscurity, because the Bills couldn't cut me because of salary cap reasons. I also couldn't go get a job because then I wasn't injury disqualified anymore. I was retiring if I go out and get a job somewhere. So I had this 5 or so month period where I couldn't really post on social media that I was trying to lose weight or anything. And I didn't want to post pictures of me looking thinner. I didn't want to I just tried to stay out of the news, and I was in obscurity. And through that time, I realized that the way I'm wired, I need to be pursuing something, and it's a career. And yes, on a daily basis, I pursue being the best dad and husband I can be at home. And I think you have to make an impact at home first. But for me, I knew that I needed to pursue something. During that period, I had a number of national media members reach out to me, a number of people from the Buffalo media reach out and say, hey, have you ever need any connections in this business? You were always, Jay, one of them, if you ever need connections in this business, let me know, because you always treated us well. And so we'll help you out. And part of the reason of me treating the media well when I was playing is I always just had a mutual respect. One, they treated me so well when I got to Buffalo that I always remembered that. Like, they always were behind me. The media was. So when they came to my locker, I tried to not just give them a cliche statement after a game. I tried to give them a little something more. They always appreciated that. So when my career ended, they were willing to take care of me. And that was the national media guys too. And so that helped me get my foot in the door my first year, because I couldn't enter the workforce basically till June. I got cut May. I finally got injury released May 31st. So that summer I tried to get a gig. I was lowest man possible on the Fox broadcast crew. And so I didn't even get a gig until Thanksgiving weekend. And I'm assuming people didn't want to work. And so I finally got a shot in the booth. That was me getting my foot in the door. That gave me some tape that I could finally put out there besides me going and interviewing and auditioning places. So that gave me one shot in the booth. And when I look back, and Jay, if I could, I mean, I think we had 5 or 6 cameras. This is an FS1 game, a top 25 team in Iowa State playing their rival Kansas State. We had like 5 or 6 cameras, virtually no production meetings. We had hardly any coaches calls beforehand because it was Thanksgiving week. So like Bill Snyder wanted to be with his family, Kansas State's coach. We met with Iowa State in person on Friday. So we actually did get their coaches, but we got like nothing from Kansas State. And me and Kevin Fitzgerald, who was 26 at the time, went and winged it. We put a pretty good product out there, something I was able to put out there. Ended up getting a gig with ESPN and mainly ACC Network. And then I got on to call the games for Buffalo Bills Radio Network. And for me, it allowed me to keep my same schedule. You know, I'm working really hard in the fall. I'm gone a bunch. Like that worked well for our family. That's what we're used to. And then in the off season, which I kept saying off season, my first season out, and I'm like, I guess there is no more off season. You know, it's just it's just winter and spring and summer. Like there's no off season, in season. Well, this got me back in that routine. It kept me around football. I got to have football conversations. And, you know, if I would have got to play another 5 or 6 years and play till the wheels fell off like I wanted to, maybe I wouldn't have hopped in so fast. But I was not ready for football to be removed from my life. And being on the media side doesn't require nearly as many hours as the coaching side. So it allowed me to kind of get back around the game without, you know, working my life away with like the coaches do, which I tremendously respect. I'm just not at the point in my life with a 5 and a 3-year-old where I'm willing to do that right now.
That's awesome. And you had to jump in and make some sacrifices and right away, which you probably didn't think you were going to have to do right out of the gate, but you did because you have that passion, which is clear and evident. And I'm sure everybody here can witness that. And then one real quick thing I want to get into before we let you go, Eric, and I appreciate your time, is the importance of diversity on and off the field that you've had to be a part of, that you've experienced, and maybe you've lent your hand in.
Yeah. So I always said football locker rooms are like they're a microcosm of what society should be like. Like if you came to Thanksgiving at my house, and I would always host everybody for Thanksgiving every year that, you know, didn't have a family to spend Thanksgiving with, we would do Thanksgiving and Christmas huge at our house. And it was probably 50% white, 50% black. And it made it a ton of fun because people were from all over the country. People have different things they like and whatnot. And so we would have this hodgepodge of turkey plus whatever everybody else wanted to bring. My wife would try and cook stuff for people that would recommend dishes or whatever it may be. But football locker rooms, we don't care what religion you are, what politics you're supporting. We don't care what color you are. We don't care what socioeconomic background you came from. If you're about winning games, working hard, treating people right, like I respect you, I'll line up next to you. And so I thought the Bills did a really cool deal. And this comes with having a woman owner. Kim Pegula, we were the first people to hire a full-time woman coach. And it was funny that first year when Rex Ryan sometimes would talk with colorful language in our meetings. And then he'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, Catherine. And Catherine would be like, you don't have to apologize, Rex. It's all good. Like, you know, we're not in there making sexist jokes by any means, but he's dropping F-bombs and whatnot. And I mean, you've heard him on Hard Knocks. If you haven't, you can go back and watch it. He's got a colorful language to him, but the diversity is great in any workforce. And gosh, if anything, it can rub off on you, give you some different perspective that maybe you didn't get growing up, maybe you didn't get at your school. In the workforce can be an opportunity where you finally can get that different perspective and people that are from different places. And I say diversity, I mean, like I mentioned, this could be race, politics, whatever, and just being able to sympathize, empathize with people. Man, that's what life's all about, Jay.
It is. And that's what life should be about. And unfortunately, I think that gets lost and sometimes. And that's what I try to build my team with. We have conversations all the time, and it's just us talking about life and experiences that you have. And this year, Eric, I don't know if you were privy to the situation, but the Bills had a monthly series where a coach, a black head coach like Leslie Frazier would come and talk to us. Various players would come and talk to us and talk about their experience with racial injustice. And it really I didn't have that upbringing. It opened my eyes and it led me to be a better person, even if I thought I already was there.
Yeah. And I did something similar on my podcast, right when the social injustice stuff started happening. I brought on a few Black men that I knew would talk some truth into me, and Leslie Frazier was one of them. And it was funny. I said, okay, I know I'm not going to solve all of our issues. I know I'm not going to change the world myself, but what do you want me? What would you like one individual like me to do, Leslie? And he's like, even you just asking me that is what we want. And it was so interesting to me, like just asking questions and getting perspective for two people that respect each other. And I can ask him things like, is the Rooney Rule offensive to a Leslie Frazier, who in my mind is one of the best coaches in the NFL, but he could be brought into an organization for an interview simply because the Rooney Rule states that if you're going to hire a coach or GM, you have to interview a person of color. And I'm like, that would be offensive to me if I was you, Leslie. And then he brought it around for me that at one time, Black men couldn't get head coaching interviews even. So this allowed them to at least get their foot in the door to even have a shot. And I said, okay, that makes sense to me now, because before I'm like, the Leslie Fraziers, the Mike Tomlins, the Marvin Lewises, you can run the list. David Culley, who was just hired by the Texans, Anthony Lynn, like these dudes that I was around and got to spend time with, like I'd be offended if you said you have to interview me because of the color of my skin. And he brought it full circle for me. And so it's like, man, there's so much we can learn by just asking questions, being open, and being in a diverse environment like you originally asked about.
Well said. Well put. Eric, thank you for your time. Real quick, though, you mentioned Thanksgiving that you guys would host and have. You got to tell and be truthful. How much weight did you put on in one Thanksgiving?
Well, this year I set my own personal record at 14 something pounds, but I am ultra competitive. So you asked me what motivated me earlier. Like ultimately, like I hate losing at anything, whether that's my own individual rep or that's the team. So I hate losing. So this year, I ran a 10K in the morning, hit the sauna. So you weigh in super light. I mean, I'm probably down 8 or 9 pounds of water at that point. And then you rehydrate, eat a little bit. I'm not playing anymore. I had a few beers, a couple drinks, dessert, and all that. 14 pounds, no big deal.
Yeah, you're also not with your football teammates, so you're probably just doing it on your own. And how much weight have you lost total since your playing days? Because you've just trimmed down tremendously.
I'm probably somewhere in the high 240s, which would be a little over 60 pounds.
Unbelievable. Eric, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you joining us as a surprise guest. Great conversation, and I'm sure I'll be bugging you soon for some help on the show.
No, my pleasure, Jay. It's always a pleasure working with you. And before I came down to my little makeshift studio in the basement now, I was explaining to my wife what I was doing. And I said, well, countless times throughout the season, I'll have to text Jay and say, and I know how booked you guys are for One Bills Live. And I'll say, is there any way I can move back an hour? And you always take care of me. So when you asked for 10 to 15 minutes of my time, it was a no-brainer for me, brother.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks so
See you
much.
guys.
Love you, Eric. So thank you for Eric for joining us. I thought that was awesome. He always brings it and really has transformed himself. He was super raw his first time into the broadcast booth on our show, and he's really taken to learning. And one thing I will say about working with athletes is they've been coached their entire life, and you take it for granted. They want to be coached. They want you in their ear. And that has been something that I kind of held onto and didn't let nerves get in the way, and really kind of opened my doors to some really good relationships with my current host on the show, Steve Tasker, and of course here, Eric Wood. So I know we got a little bit of time here, and I know Kayla mentioned that maybe we can open up some questions, but Kayla or anybody else on the panel that may have some questions for me to start, or anything that you want to follow up on before we get into the Q&A session, I'll leave it to you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was amazing. Thank you for bringing him on. That was everyone. That was all Jay. That's his connection, and he that was so thoughtful of you to think of bringing on someone like Eric Wood to come and talk to us. So like Jay said, we are going to open it up to questions. If you have any questions, you can either unmute yourself, maybe turn your camera on so you can talk to a face, or if you're not comfortable, you can drop it in the chat and I can ask it for you. But yeah, I'll start out with a pretty general question, but I mean, I know that you loved the Sabres and the Bills all your life, as do I. What is your really favorite part about working with a brand that you grew up with, that you grew up just absolutely loving?
I think just being associated with it as a whole is interesting in itself. The teams haven't been very good over the years, but it's still professional sports, and I've always wanted and strived to work in that capacity, and it's been awesome. But some of the conversations that were sort of brought up here with Eric, but just the development and the relationships of being inside the team, my relationship with head coach Sean McDermott, some of the players that are on the staff, my coworkers is really cool, because from the outside, you look at these guys as maybe just pro athletes and they're not real people, but they are real people. They love music. They love to know about your family. I love to learn about their family. We have some of the same interests, whether it be food or like I said, music, or some books that we've been reading together. So I think that's pretty cool to associate yourself with that and working in that professional field, because it's something that I never thought that would be a part of it, but it really is. It really is.
Yeah, and I think Eric just proved to us that they may be big stars, they may be all over the media and social media and just in the news, but they're real people, and clearly he has huge passions that are outside of football, so that was really awesome to see. If anybody else has any more questions, feel free.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What are some hardships that you faced in the beginning of your career, just starting off young and not really knowing the industry so well as you do now?
I brought it up earlier. I think figuring out what I wanted to do in the broadcasting industry, what was right for me, what was working. I had to really look at myself in the mirror and am I going to be an on-air talent? And I would look back at some of my tapes, and I got a higher pitched voice, and I just didn't know. I'm like, you know what? This isn't something that's gonna etch on. Can I tell a story? Can I write a story? Yes, but am I better situated or kind of better off leading people and coming up with the ideas and letting somebody else do the on-air work and be, I don't want to insult them, but be the puppet a little bit. That was really tough. And then another side of things too, as you guys are all aware, where even being in this COVID situation over the past year, how technology plays a huge role and it's ever adapting. I mean, I never would have thought 2 years ago that my shows would be done over a platform like Zoom or Skype. And we do our hockey show because we can't have that many employees in that one area right now. So the hockey show is at home and we do it over Zoom, and it's been great. And you can buy broadcast ready microphones that are fairly cheap and inexpensive, and they work great, and you can put on high level broadcast. But then adapting with the times. Okay, I'm doing simulcast shows, but those aren't really where people are going to get their material. They're going to go to social media. They're going to go to streaming shows. So we started dabbling in that a little bit more, and I'd love to do more of those podcasts. We started 2 new podcasts, and one last year we had started. It was called the Bills Pod Squad. And the day before we were going to tape our first episode, the owner of the Bills, Kim Pegula, said she wanted to do it. So you talk about pressure. I'm like, oh boy, you want to do this podcast? You have no background experience in broadcasting, but let's do it. And it's been an awesome ride, leaning on her for connections, and just having her from an owner's perspective tell stories has been awesome. So basically staying with the trend, but also trying to find ways to stay ahead of the trend, which is really hard to do because as you all know, the podcast industry, it's saturated, it's oversaturated. So we're jumping in, and what is going to separate you? There's probably hundreds of Bill's podcasts, but what separates us? Well, we have the owner of the team who is friends with the commissioner, Roger Goodell, who would come on, who's friends with owner Mark Davis of the Raiders, who would come on. And then same goes for our show that we do here. What connections do I have that I can get on that can lend to a better conversation, that will lend to more interest, that'll lend to more viewers, that'll lend hopefully to more revenue streams for our show. So hopefully that answered your question. I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty of some technological aspects of it that I struggled with. I didn't want to bore you with that. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. Adriana, did you have a question?
I do have a question. Hi, Jay. It's nice to meet you. My name's
Hi,
Adriana.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. I guess I'll just introduce myself a little bit in the beginning. So I am a sophomore mass communications major at the University of West Georgia. So I am living in Georgia, but I'm actually originally from Hamburg, New York. So yeah. Yeah, and I've been a Bills fan my whole life. So this is really cool. And seeing Eric on here was really cool too. So I'm interested in broadcasting. Like, I'm involved in my college's radio station and I host a show there. And I'm also the president of the PRSSA chapter at my college. So that's just a little bit about me. So my question for you is, earlier you mentioned some challenges, or not challenges, but the changing industry and how the industry is constantly changing. And I wanted to know, what are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed in your time? And also, how do you see the industry changing in the future?
That's a great question. Over time, and it has been quick. I started in this industry editing tape and actually writing down scripts, which is crazy to maybe some of you younger ones, but it really wasn't that long ago. To now the digital editing and different software that we can use to communicate with each other, which is one big tool. Even today, I had to work from home today, unforeseen circumstances, and I was able to produce the show from home and still communicate with the guys, which is great. So that's one aspect that is changed about how we do things, and then what's appealing. Is it the visual aspect of our show? Is it the storytelling that we're doing our show, or is it the news end of things? 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, the show that I do now called One Bills Live with the Bills, and I also do a 2-hour hockey show called The Instigators, but it's very hard-hitting news. Okay, what's the story of the day? What's the news of the day? I think now it's so easy to access that I think the common viewer already knows what's going on. So I've had to transition the way I do the show to more of a opinion-based, but being smart about your opinions, thoughtful. We do work for the team, and I don't want to put somebody out there giving an opinion that they're not prepared to give a take on. That's one struggle that I have daily, because in my mind, I'm like, hey, I'd love to talk about this. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And maybe they don't have a clear thought to expand enough, as you know, in the radio platform. So that's been a challenge a little bit. And then, like I mentioned, the storytelling aspect is big, coming up with something that I can branch off of. Okay, player X wants to get traded. That's a big deal. It's big news in the sporting world. Let's talk about it, but let's also branch off and tell some stories. Have Steve Tasker, who's on our show, have you ever had or been with a player that maybe wanted to get out of their current situation and maybe didn't have the resources to do so, or they didn't have Instagram and Twitter and social media to be able to voice their opinions on their own? They had to go through their agent, and then it'd have to go through the news, and it would have to wait until the news cycle, and then maybe it wouldn't get out until the next day, and maybe that player changed his mind or had different feelings by that time. So I think that's finding the human aspect from these players has been huge, and kind of tapping into that. And whether that's me directly reaching out to them to tell their story, or to get them to tell their story, which I love doing, or just feeding off of the news of the day. And don't misinterpret what's going on, but kind of put yourself in that player's position a little bit, and kind of tell a unique story along with it. As far as what the future holds, I can't answer that, and I hate saying that. I really do, but I don't know. I told you earlier, and Isabella brought this up, with some of my struggles were being ahead of the trend, but I didn't know what the trend was. So I jumped in with what was hot, and maybe that would have been good for the first couple of years, but now I'm like, okay, now it's a saturated market, and I'm still involved in doing it. So now my challenge is, what's my approach to be different? Who am I gearing my show towards? Do I concentrate on a certain demographic? I don't think that's a smart way to do it, because you don't want to change what works well. But maybe catering to audiences in a different platform, where maybe I'm posting some material and engaging with viewers on social media, and maybe using Twitter as a way to get responses. I do a tweet sheet every day where I take responses from fans or listeners that tweet in responses to a certain topic we have during the day, and I use that platform. And then there's the old traditional call-in, which is ever so hilarious when we get random callers calling into the show, which is fun. So there, I'm playing with those that would call in are probably your older demographic. And then those that are playing off of you on social media are also taking part in what you do, and maybe not on a daily basis during the show when the show's going on, but I can play with them maybe at night when I get off. I see somebody tweeted in a question, I can answer back to them. But that's probably it. But I think because the industry changes so much, and I don't mean to be so long-winded here, but it kind of leaves you open to be more creative and try to test things out. There's ideas that I have on a daily basis, and maybe it's because of the length of programming that I do, but I'm always leaning on the guys that I work with. If they have an idea, let's try it out. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't work, okay, let's move on and do something else. We're not putting ourselves in harm's way. Okay, for 5 minutes, it may not work, but hey, I want to try this. I want to do a NFL true false, where I give you a headline that I saw and you guys argue if that's true or false. What's for lunch is also a fun one that I just started doing, where again, it brings up an opinion-based conversation, and it's, do you want this player or this player? What's for lunch? Do you prefer this or that? And then sometimes I have some fun. Do you prefer, grilling or staying inside or whatever? So I wish I had a better answer for you, Adriana, but I don't. But it's just being aware, having a peripheral vision. Don't get too focused on what you're doing, especially in this industry. What's your career goals, or where do you see yourself in 5 years, is a very uncomfortable question for me. It's tough to answer, and I feel bad not answering it, but I really don't want to put myself in that situation where I'm looking at 5 years down the road today, when I know it's going to be different maybe by next year. I mean, and I brought up the COVID situation. I'd have no idea that, honestly, that we'd be doing this over Zoom. I bet you Kayla probably wouldn't even have thought of even trying to do something like this if I couldn't make it up to Oswego. She's shaking her head. Yes, I would have. So I'll give you credit. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so difficult. It really is. It really is. But just have your peripheral and look around you and what's going on, and just be confident in yourself and what you're doing, and test things out. Because as you'll look around and see, I think people are getting more comfortable with doing something that may work, that's a little bit unique, and maybe it's strange, but it's going to work. It's going to work for an audience. There's an audience out there for it, especially if you had the idea. You got it for influence from somewhere, right?
Right. Yeah, that was a great answer, and that's some great advice. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.
So you talked a little bit about staying ahead of the curve and how you're on some of the social medias. And you also mentioned that you have some dance moves and some singing abilities. Do you ever see taking the show onto TikTok?
Yes, I do. I would love to. I will preface by saying it wouldn't be the show that I do now. It would be something else. Definitely would be part of it. The deal that we signed, they own the digital rights, so we struggle with putting a lot of our entities out there. So we have to do a lot of side things. But yes, absolutely. The guys that are actually part of my team that I call, they say they run, we call them the TikTok bros. The two guys that run TikTok are the most creative and influential people that I've met for kind of like the newer generation of doing media. They come up with some crazy ideas, and I'm going to bring that one up to get more involvement, and they can help us with that. Because I think it would be funny. You can put up anything, and it allows you to get to know who the personalities are that are actually on the show, or even me, if there's a future for me in there, which maybe there is.
Yeah, maybe there is. You have to try it out.
You never know.
I see Colton has his hand up.
Hey, Jay. So I'm an advertising public relation major. My question, I don't know if I want to get into broadcasting, but I'd love to get involved with like any sports team, really. I'm assistant coaching right now for local high school wrestling. But my question would be, what would you suggest for someone to like get involved with this type of field or get involved with any kind of sports team, like advertising wise, stuff like that?
So, well, you said it, get involved any way possible and work your way up and develop relationships. That was key for me. Is I meet somebody and I develop a relationship with them. I told the story earlier about how I got the job at WIVB. I just sort of struck up conversation with one of the team reporters on a daily basis covering Sabres. And I think she kind of latched on a little bit and said, hey, this person might be good for what we're trying to do over here at Channel 4. And it kind of led me to working in the news industry. And then eventually I met a bunch of people in the industry. And I was fortunate enough to meet John Murphy, who actually I worked with for a long time, that brought me to the Bills and professional sports. But anywhere that you can get involved, even if it's in minor leagues, you're going to meet somebody that has a connection with somebody. And if that's the case, introduce yourself. Make sure they don't forget who you are. Make sure they don't forget your name. It's always important. And I brought this up about your resume and applying for jobs. You have the skill set. Otherwise, you wouldn't be having that interview, but what's going to set you apart? And I really do think it's character, personality, and latching on with whoever's interviewing you or whoever you're meeting with, so that they don't forget you and that they remember you and they remember your story, and they know that you have the drive to succeed. And they'll put you in a position to succeed. And then from there, it's all about just making contacts and building your way out.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You got it, man. Good luck.
So we do have one more question. It looks like Sarah has her hand up, but I just want to preface this. This is going to be the last question that we'll take because we are getting to time. I just want to make one other announcement. I'm dropping into the chat a couple of links for the recording of this meeting, because we did record the entire event. It will be on our website, as well as a calendar for all of our future events. And if you, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but if you need proof of your attendance for credit or any reason, you can email our organization, and I'm going to drop that email in the chat as well. So Sarah.
Hi, Jay. It's so nice to meet you. I'm curious, with as monumental as this past season has been, do you have any favorite moments or memories that have happened?
From this past season?
Yes, or any, really, but this season was insane.
Yeah, it really was. And it was a wild ride. And I'll give you a little bit of a personal connection to it because it's kind of emotional a little bit. I've covered the team. I've been with the team. They weren't very good. I knew they were really good, and this was going to be a big year. Because of COVID, I was able to actually watch the games from home. I wasn't part of the game day broadcast because we needed things scaled down a little bit. So I kind of worked from home. But kind of taking a step back and watching this team and watching it with my family and having them win that divisional game over the Ravens and going outside to like catch my breath and hearing horns honking and fireworks go. I hope to God they were fireworks going off. Not anything else. But just to kind of take a step back and then look at my young family, and they could see the joy that I have covering this team. And they're like, you're so happy. And this brings dad joy, which was really cool. I got to share that with my family, which I never thought I would be able to do, to be honest with you, because I thought I would be on the road working till midnight and then having to wake up the next day and all those high emotions, those raw emotions are gone. And I got to hug my kid and they kind of be a part of game day with me it was awesome. And I just had a baby girl back in July before the season started, and just dressing her up, and my son and my other daughter dressing them up in Bills clothes because they know it's Bills Sunday. And they wake up and they go, Daddy, is today a Bills day? And I'm like, yeah, it's Bills day, baby. Let's go, get them excited. It's awesome. And I know you're probably looking for some cool interaction that I had. And maybe I can think back and try to share one, but that's personal to me. And hopefully you're okay with me sharing that. Cause that was awesome. And it really was a wild ride, an emotional ride. And I know it's silly that it's just sports, but it's what I do, and it's part of my family, and it was part of my upbringing, and it's helped build who I am today. And it's been surreal. But I guess throughout this, I mentioned about some of the contacts that I have that I hold true to, of reaching out to various players or national sports pundits or national media analysts to come on the show. When they started getting good, they actually were reaching out to me asking for advice on the Bills and what's going on over there. And maybe we can get you on the show. And I'm like, oh, they have my number saved. Like, that's so cool to me. So that was another part of it too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And having fans come back too was awesome too.
Yeah. I was at the one game. It was insane. Absolutely insane.
Lucky you.
Well, thank you. Oh, sorry, Jay. Did you have something?
Yeah, real quick. I'm just seeing in the chat, and I just want to answer this. The hardest broadcast you ever had to do. I never really brought up some of the cool things that I got to do. I got to go to the Super Bowl twice, which was awesome. And Radio Row, and actually see Kevin Hart, who is shorter than I thought he was, which was really cool. And seeing the Backstreet Boys and making a fool out of myself with them, and then meeting Evander Holyfield, which was awesome. And the chunk that is actually out of his ear is more in depth than you thought it would be. But at the Super Bowl, I'm in Minnesota. I lose internet 5 minutes before the show. I can't broadcast. I'm freaking out. They made me upgrade charge. I think it was like $3,000 just for like basic internet. I'm talking like 20 megabytes. It was awful. Got it on, hit play. We're up, we're running, we're on the show. But that was one because I had guests waiting to come on the show. And I just wanted to answer that because that popped up into my mind as one of the hardest broadcasts I ever had to do. But you stay calm, you stay cool. It's all going to work itself out. I've never had an issue of not having a show go on. So.
Wow. Well, I think that's an impressive statistic for you to share, that you've never had a show not go on.
Yeah. That's because I work with great people. And like I said, I stay cool. And Kayla, please mention that people can reach out to me. You shared my LinkedIn page. I'm regularly available on there. If anybody has any further questions, I'd love to chat and talk to real humans instead of 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds. So.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up. So that link to our website also takes you to a Meet the Speakers page, and that's where you can find Jay's LinkedIn. And he is welcome to all of you to connect with him, reach out, ask more questions if you have more questions. But I hope that everyone enjoyed the event. I definitely did. Jay, thank you so much. This has been so awesome. So awesome.
You got it. And again, thank you so much, you guys. It was really an honor to be part of this. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yes. Hopefully, maybe sometime we can come to Buffalo, or you can come to Oswego.
I'll throw a party. Come to Oswego. I gotta go to Oswego Sub Shop. That's key. So hit me a table, and I'll come up.
Okay.
All right.
I'll reserve one at the sub shop.
We'll get it to go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.